Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the role of the Additional Learning Needs Coordinator, or ALNCO for short, which is a senior leadership position that is legally required within every school in Wales. It is the ALNCO's job to implement additional learning needs policy at a strategic level within their school. Here's a brief history of the ALNCO role. The Additional Learning Needs and Education Tribunal Act in 2018 of Wales, referred to as ALNET, replaced the Special Educational Needs System with a system of legislative measures governing the provision for learner support with additional learning needs within Wales. Under ALNET, it became a legal obligation for schools, health boards and local authorities to identify and create individual development plans, IDPs, for learners with additional learning needs. The ALN Code of 2021 provides mandatory guidance on how to implement the legal framework initiated under the ALNET legislation. Under the code, the specific duties of local authorities, health boards and schools is outlined in relation to identifying and providing for learners with additional learning needs. It is within the code that the duties of the ALNCO are detailed, and these duties are extensive. They include a senior leadership position. As a member of the senior leadership team within schools, the ALNCO must work with other senior members of leadership to ensure that the ALNCO is followed and that inclusive practice is implemented throughout the school. This focus on inclusive practice represents a dramatic shift in educational provision compared with the previous SEN system. The SEN system can be seen as operating under a medical model of disability. Under the old system, children with special educational needs were seen as needing assistance to adapt them to suit existing systems. Learners tended to be diagnosed and solutions were prescribed to them, so that they could access the systems. Under the new ALN framework of inclusivity, it is required for schools to adapt their practices in order to provide for all learners. To implement these changes, the LNA code details a graduated response to learners' needs. Universal provisions. Universal provisions represent high quality teaching and provisions available to all learners. It is part of the ALNCO's duties to ensure that teaching staff are given the resources and training they need to implement these provisions. The ALNCO must make sure that appropriate differentiation, scaffolding and visual aids or other sensory adaptations to teaching are employed to enhance the learning of as many pupils as possible. Short-term targeted small group interventions may be employed to help learners achieve their potential. The ALNCO must make sure that universal provisions cater to as many pupils as possible and that teaching staff are professionally trained in identifying and responding to the needs of their pupils. Universal provisions are in place to provide inclusivity by minimising the need for formal interventions and diagnosing children with additional learning needs. Additional learning provisions. ALPs are educational provisions implemented in addition to universal provisions. From a legal perspective, a learner is only identified as having additional learning needs when a disability or learning difficulty necessitates additional learning provisions. These provisions may take the form of one-to-one support, therapeutic interventions such as speech and language therapy or physiotherapy, or they may be specialised technology or equipment to help the learner access the curriculum. Identifying learners who need support. The ALN code provides practical guidance on how to identify pupils with additional learning needs. The ALNCO must work with teachers and external professionals to identify those who may require additional learning provisions and coordinate the assessment of these needs. Once it has been decided that a learner does require additional provisions, the local authority and the school are responsible for creating and maintaining individual development plans for that learner. IDPs and person-centred planning. The IDP they document what a child or young person's additional learning need is. It presents the provisions required to address the additional needs and documents the outcome of the learner's wishes and what they want to achieve. Fundamental to the creation and maintenance of the IDP is person-centred practice. We're providing learners with additional learning needs. The pupil must be at the heart of all decisions relating to their provisions. As such, their needs, wishes and feelings regarding their education and welfare must be central to all decision making. It is the learner voice that forms the basis of the IDPs, and this involves gathering as much information about that individual as possible, and this is coordinated by the ALNCO. Once a year, a person-centred review is required to assess the learner's aspirations and needs. If possible, the learner can contribute directly to this process, stating their likes, dislikes, and what is important to them. Collaboration. Acting as a bridge between various stakeholders is a vital part of the ALNCO's role. It is their duty to act as a point of contact for internal and external actors, and it is essential for families, carers, teachers and other professionals to be involved in the process of creating and maintaining IDPs. Multiple agencies are involved in gathering information about what learners want, their needs, and establishing what is important for that child. From this annual review process, a number of outcomes are established that address the learner's needs and move the learner closer to achieving their aspirations. These outcomes are legally binding, and if they are not fulfilled, parents or individuals are within their rights to take the relevant parties to a tribunal to remedy the situation. Challenges facing the ALNCOs. A recent review of the ALN framework by the Welsh Government identified a number of challenges faced by ALNCOs in implementing ALNet and the ALN code. Both the terms additional learning needs and additional learning provisions are not very clearly well defined and lack consistency between local authorities. Additionally, the multifaceted nature of the new Welsh curriculum from 2022, it provides a great deal of freedom which can be seen at odds with additional learning provisions, as it becomes difficult to define what additional to or additional from are when each school has its own curriculum. As such, there is no baseline, and it becomes difficult for ALNCOs to make sure that their procedures meet legally defined frameworks, duties and expectations. It is also commonplace for ALNCOs to maintain a teaching role alongside their senior leadership positions, and coordinating multiple agency data collection, navigating legal requirements and person-centred planning involve a great deal of administrative work, which has resulted in some ALNCOs feeling overburdened by their dual responsibilities. A remedy this would be to appoint more administrative staff or deputy ALNCOs who could help with the administrative burden, but there's often financial constraints that mean this isn't always possible. There are also conflicts between the nature of the ALNet and its legally binding nature can be difficult because the ALNCO is responsible for coordinating multiple agencies, but yet they have no power to actually force those agencies to attend annual reviews or to comply in a timely manner. So this can cause some difficulty for the ALNCO, who is seen as the face of the provisions. So in conclusion, the role of the ALNCO is multifaceted. In coordinating universal and additional learning provisions, they oversee a move to provide an inclusive educational experience where learners' needs are considered and graduated adaptations are made to assist pupils' learning. This increased focus follows a cultural and social shift to an inclusive view of disability and additional learning needs, and the ALNCO plays an important role in providing learners with this inclusivity. Thank you very much for listening to me. Here is my bibliography.